Oklahoma's budget crisis has focused attention on Oklahoma's overcrowded prison system. As corrections officials struggle to cope with low staffing levels and reduced funding, lawmakers have agreed to a series of proposals aimed at curbing the state's soaring prison population.
Oklahoma's interim corrections director, Joe Albaugh, painted a grim picture of conditions in Oklahoma prisons during a public forum hosted by Oklahoma Watch. Albaugh says Oklahoma's prisons are bulging at the seams, and the state's tough-on-crime approach has only succeeded in producing more hardened criminals.
The 85% laws, the 50% laws, the mandatory sentences have not had the desired effect that everyone was expecting. So when men and women come into our system, regrettably, because we cannot protect each and every one of them, they join a gang.
Albaugh says half the state's prison population consists of non-violent offenders or those on drug or alcohol-related issues.
We ought to be taking those two groups and putting them in programs that would be local and more efficient, less costly, and closer to their families and support groups, instead of shipping them all over the state, putting them in with hardened criminals.
The legislature last month agreed to tap the state's rainy day fund for $27.5 million in emergency funding for corrections. But while the prison population continues to grow, staffing has fallen to dangerously low levels. Former House Speaker Chris Steele is chair of Oklahomans for Criminal Justice Reform.
We're at 123% capacity. Our prisons are staffed at just over 60% staffing. And so we have more people than we ever have today and fewer staff to maintain order.
Steele says Oklahoma imprisons more women than any other state and has the second highest overall incarceration rate in the country. Adam Luck, Oklahoma State Director for Right on Crime, says that trajectory is unsustainable.
The inmate increase over the last 15 years has been about 26%, while staffing has gone down about 21%, and it continues to go down. And when you look at how we compare nationally, the national average is 1 staff for every 5 inmates, and we actually have the highest inmate to staff ratio in the country. We have 1 staff for every 11 inmates.
While efforts aimed at taking a smart-on-crime approach have come up short in the past, Luck believes the state's looming $1.3 billion budget hole and the cost incurred by an overcrowded prison system make criminal justice reform more acceptable to lawmakers.
When you look at those numbers, when you see the trajectory, when you see the long-term trends that this Department of Corrections has been on for the last 15 to 20 years, it's really hard to deny that we're on a path to a place that's not very good.
Last month, the House of Representatives passed a series of 4 reform measures by Representative Pam Peterson. House Bill 2472 gives prosecutors discretion to file charges as a misdemeanor instead of a felony. House Bill 2479 reduces the mandatory punishment for subsequent drug offenses. House Bill 2751 raises the threshold for property crimes to be charged as a felony from $500 to $1,000. And House Bill 2753 establishes means for broader use of drug courts. Greg Treat is Senate author of 3 of the bills.
We're still going to be tough on crime. I believe on being tough on crime. We want to make sure our streets are safe, our kids are safe, that our families are safe. And these bills do nothing to hamper that.
Treat says the measures will still hold lawbreakers accountable.
But they also get some treatment, and they're not just warehoused in prison, but they are actually treated. And there's some common sense reform in there to make sure that we don't make felons out of people who otherwise wouldn't be any problem to society.
Treat admits the bills won't do much to close the state's huge budget hole, since those already incarcerated will remain behind bars.
But it will keep future legislatures from having to expend $20,000 a year to warehouse someone when it's a lot cheaper to go through an alternative sentencing type program or treatment. And it's not only cheaper on the state, it improves that person's likelihood of being successful later in life and being a tax-paying citizen.
And Steele believes the reforms will pay dividends in the future by reducing the need for additional bed space.
But then the other thing that the reforms will do will begin to help those who have paid their debt and served their time successfully rebuild their life and successfully transition back into the community so that ultimately they can become contributing, pro-social, productive members of society.
This week, the full Senate easily passed all 4 bills, sending them on to Governor Mary Fallin, who has indicated she will sign the measures into law.